All right, so looking at what we're going to talk about today during the next about hour and 20 minutes, we're going to talk about standards briefly. We're going to introduce to you the financial education state standards, but again, not as something else we're adding on to your list of things to do, but to show the overlap between the ELA standards that are already your requirement through K through 5 and how we can kind of find the Venn diagram in the middle there. We're also going to dive deep into one of my passion project resources, which is our FEPPP Financial Education Library. We're going to look at the idea of using these picture books to teach personal finance and economic themes. I'm going to explore the lesson and resource guides that I've developed that go along with the library. And we're going to look at one book, Uncle Jed's Barbershop, to kind of navigate one of those lesson and resource guides and show you how they're compiled. We're also going to look at some personal finance vocabulary resources. And at the end, we've got a bonus round of how social emotional learning, ELA, and financial literacy make a really beautiful natural connection and how we can explore those in the classroom as well. So just a brief little overview about FEPPP and who we are and why we are here to give this professional development. Just so you know, we were formed by legislative mandate in 2004. We have recently expanded in the last year to the program staff that you see here today. Our primary role is to increase access to financial education across K-12 for our students and educators and communities. And our method of doing this is through developing quality resources or collecting quality resources and providing professional development like we're here to do today. And I always like to start with just a little bit about the importance of financial education. And I know this is about loans and we can come back to that, but I just like to take a minute to recognize how important financial education is within the K-5 space. Because you might hear some people say, well, isn't that a little young to be learning about like credit? Isn't that a little young to be talking about budgeting? And my emphatic answer is no, because we know students today, right? As soon as they have access to a screen, they are now consumers. That is the digital world that we're living in. And the challenge as we as educators and I'm sure parents and communities are going to face as well is how are we teaching the value of a dollar to students who can spend money with the push of a button, right? You know, you see on the apps, you press a button and you spend $9.99. How can we have a conceptual understanding and pass that on to our students of what that means and what the value of that $9.99 is? And that's going to be a real challenge. And I think that investing in financial literacy in K through 5 is a great starting point for that. Another prism that's really easy, I think accessible to look at is student loan debt. I mean, raise your hand if you have student loan debt. We're looking at 28 billion in Washington alone. And that's just, you know, a drop in the bucket compared to the 1.6 trillion owed across the country. And, you know, it's a popular subject nowadays, it's in the news, but regardless, these statistics demonstrate that up to this point, we have just been assuming students are going to absorb this financial literacy, I think, through osmosis as they got older, and would just be able to handle these loans. But this really shows us that core understanding of what it means to take out a loan, how to budget for working it into your income, knowing what sort of income your proposed job is going to bring in for you. These pieces have been missing up to this point. So the idea that you're ready to integrate financial literacy into your classroom is really exciting because we have this ability to impact generational change with this information, which is part of why I think Melody and I are just so passionate about our positions here. It's very exciting. And the last little bit just to mention is that, I mean, research shows that the students who benefit the most from this are the kids that need it the most, that are in those disadvantaged categories, the special population students that are historically underserved. And we know that some of these students will take this information home as well. And I would also, this kind of makes me think as well, as teachers, like we recognize we're not experts in this either. You know what I mean? And integrating this financial education piece, I know personally has helped me learn so much and feel so much more confident in my own self-efficacy when it comes to my finances. And I think that can be a very empowering piece for educators as well. We all know educators deserve better pay, but we don't get that we didn't get that financial education either. So something to consider. And as we move through, ELA resources, I think it's really important to kind of touch on other languages that your students may speak. If you have students who speak other languages in your class and you are mindful of having to find resources in that and you're comfortable, please feel free to share that in the chat. And Milady's going to share a little bit about our approach to dual language resources.
Thank you, Amy. So yeah, so we focus a lot on dual language resources because so many of our students speak Spanish as their second language. The language spoken by most students other than English is Spanish in the state of Washington. However, we know from educators, we do a lot of the boots on the ground work to find out what do dual language educators need? How can we support them? It's very hard to teach in two languages, and we want to do everything in our power to provide them with good, high quality resources. Their number one comment was, we don't have access to a lot of high quality, equitably translated resources in English and Spanish. And I also want to say, whenever we refer to dual language resources, we mean resources available in English and Spanish. Both Amy and I are bilingual and biliterate in Spanish and English. I wish I could tell you I spoke 10 languages. I don't. We speak Spanish, we speak English, and that's what we have the capacity to vet, right? We want to make sure that the dual language resources we provide and recommend are of the highest quality and include equitable translations. If there's audible pieces to a resource, we make sure that they are, whenever possible, by heritage speakers that are very clear and easy to understand. Additionally, a lot of our BIPOC students have Spanish as their first language, like our migrant students. 92% of them come from Latin American nations and have Spanish as their first language. Now, with that being said, there's a big concern because 91% of our English language learners experience economic hardship. So it is important for them to learn about financial education and what resources can help them achieve financial stability. Now, we focus on financial education, as I said, because we want to support our students, we want to support our learners, and we focus on equitably translated resources, because if a translation is not, if you have a resource that was created for third graders, but the translation in Spanish is like high school level vocabulary, it's not very interesting. They're going to tune out really quickly. We want to make sure that our students are engaged. We want to make sure that the translations are not just, okay, good quality translation, but the images and the content is age appropriate as well. Otherwise, we're going to lose our students, and that's not what we want to do. Additionally, I also want to mention it's important for us to focus on parental involvement. Even though our students are learning English and they learn it very quickly, some of the parents may not be there, and we want to make sure that financial education, the learning aspect of it, continues at home. So having high quality dual language resources can empower parents to also get involved and learn alongside their students. Did I miss anything there, Amy? Anything you want to add?
No, I would just add that we are really, intentional about trying to meet. We have a lot of student demographics here that we're trying to meet. We want to make sure that we're meeting students where they are, if they are English language learners, but then also if you are in a district that has dual language and you have native English speakers, trying to acquire Spanish language, we're trying to make sure that all of our resources could be used in either context. So if you or another teacher teaches in that sort of situation, tell them to check us out. But with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into some of our content here. So we're going to, again, look at connecting the standards with that. I'm just going to keep saying that caveat. Looking at overlap, looking at areas of opportunity as opposed to a stack of standards that's being handed to you. So first, we have Washington State Financial Education Standards. They're great. They go across 6 competencies, and you'll see up in the right-hand corner, I have sort of the organizational structure. What in ELA, we would say domains. That's what we in financial education are calling the competencies. So we have spending and saving, credit and debt, employment and income, investing, insurance and risk management, and financial decision-making as our competencies. I like to say these are the answers to the Jeopardy category, things you wish you learned in high school, because financial decision-making would have been amazing for me. I would also just note quickly that the investing competency does not feature prominently in the K-5 space. It's very foundational, just the idea that you can save and make your money grow on its own for you. But that's mostly handled in the 6-8 kind of grade band.